When I first finished Doom Eternal in the summer of 2020, I had a specific question that's been swirling around in my brain since then. And that question is, where the hell do you take Doom from here? Doom Eternal felt like it was not only the logical endpoint of where you could mechanically take Doom's fast-paced, over-the-top demon murder, it also felt like it was the logical extreme to the mantra of rip and tear. You went in and systematically eliminated every single demon you could find. And in the intervening time, I started this channel, got way too into boomer shooters, and idSoftware presented me with a proposed answer to my question. A prequel set in the times of when the Doomslayer was running around actually doing all the things that made the demons terrified of him to begin with. A supposedly slower combat style that was less swapping weapons to counter specific enemies and more of an emphasis of standing and fighting. Whatever that meant. And ever the optimist, I wanted to give it a fair try. And that's what this video is gonna be. Because I've played through the first half of Doom: The Dark Ages, and I gotta get some things off of my chest. If you haven't already, do the whole like and subscribe thing. It helps me out a ton. Let's do this. For me, when it comes to Doom storytelling, I like to think that less is more should be the approach. Doom 2016 was possibly the greatest inversion of the An Ancient Evil Has Awoken narrative in video games, because they made you the Ancient Evil. You weren't Doom guy, you were the Doomslayer, a silent, rampaging anger golem that demons were fucking terrified of. He hates demons so much that he literally invaded hell to hunt them down after being blessed with superhuman strength, speed, durability, and combat prowess by a straight-up angel. He's the modern representative of the man literally too angry to die meme. And I just want to say that all of that is still present in Doom: The Dark Ages, but they've taken a more cinematic approach. As in, full-on AAA single-player campaign presentation in a prequel story, showcasing Argent Denor when it's in the midst of the demonic invasion that would eventually lead to it being partially consumed by hell. The makers, in their infinite wisdom, and to be clear, I say that with the most sarcastic air quotes imaginable, think that they have the Slayer under lock and key, and just have him locked up and sell him off to the highest bidder like a sort of mercenary type deal from the looks of it. Since this is a prequel, we all know that's not gonna last. And that's all I'm gonna say in the narrative at this point in time. A lot of the presentation is very used cutscenes and lore entries to tell the story, and I can tell that they are super polished and really well done, and I honestly couldn't care less. Because it's a Doom game. We all know why we play Doom games. It's to kill as many demons as humanly possible. Doom 2016 made this very same joke at the beginning when Samuel Hayden tries to talk to the Slayer, and he just grabs the monitor and throws it out of his face. And yeah, Eternal did a lot of the hashtag deep lore stuff too, and I thought it was annoying there as well. I don't know, maybe I'm just being an asshole for no reason, because a lot of people I know are vibing with the storytelling in the Dark Ages, and I'm just not. So it might just be a preference thing at the end of the day. I mean, sure, you still have Novik before he dies, because we encounter him as a ghost in Eternal, and we got Valen before he makes his deal with the Khan Maker. There's also Thera, Novik's daughter, whose deal I'm not entirely sure about, but she seems cool. However, you got the Hell Prince Azrek and his pet witch that I couldn't care less about as antagonists, even though they're the only two being smart enough to not antagonize the Slayer. The cutscenes they show up in have very hard cuts that couldn't be any more heavy-handed or pacing-breaking or jarring than if they said, "Meanwhile in the bowels of hell." But I'm getting off track a bit. A lot of it comes down to the fact that I'm of the opinion that not everything needs to be explained in a setting. I hope it gets better. I really do. But I'm not vibing with the story so far. Let's talk about something I'm less down on, though, which is the gameplay. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, where the hell do you take Doom mechanically? Because where do you go from here? The fast-paced weapon swapping and acrobatic tempo of Eternal's combat took some getting used to, but when you did get used to it, it was awesome. Doom: The Dark Ages also takes a while to get there. The new mechanics that are introduced in the Dark Ages invert the previous mantra of keep moving or die to stand and fight. This is best seen in the new mechanics of the shield saw that you use for blocking and tossing in Captain America style to cut small demons in half and stun larger demons, as well as the new melee attack that lets you keep enemies stunned and get you ammo back. And how do you stun enemies, you ask? By parrying. Enemies will have attacks that flash green that can be blocked by your shield that can be sent right back at them. The last of the changes is that there's a sprint function now, which makes no sense because that wasn't a thing in Doom's 2016 and Eternal due to their base movement speed being as fast as the sprint speeds in other games. A lot of these changes didn't have any weight at first, and they felt really weird. These combined with the FOV on PC being at 90 and the Hurt Me Plenty difficulty setting not being that tough led to the combat loop feeling very sluggish and slow and not that appealing. I thought, oh no, my worst fears have been realized. They changed it, therefore it sucks. But instead of being a hyperbolic nincompoop, I decided to sleep on it. And after bumping up the difficulty to ultra violence, playing a few more chapters, getting more of the weapons, changing those settings I mentioned to have always on sprint and the field of view to 110, and most importantly, getting the super shotgun, I can definitely see what Doom the Dark Ages is trying to cook up. It's not my preferred way of playing modern Doom, that's still Eternal, but I like what I've played so far. But seriously, the super shotgun is really goddamn powerful. This thing evaporates entire groups of lesser enemies on a trigger pull. It can two-shot Mankibai. It's not Doom 2 levels of overpowered because, quite frankly, nothing can be, but good god it's powerful. The combat loop then becomes a steady mix of running and gunning, parrying and shield throwing, but with the added incentive to get in close because some enemies just needed to be punched to death. Unrelated, but it's time for an homage to Civ 11's hit series, humiliating the Cyber Demon. That was satisfying. The levels themselves are these wide open battlefields that you can just zoom across, and that's a good thing because they pack them sons of bitches with demons like you wouldn't believe. It ties into combat by giving you a lot of room to maneuver around in. It's quite nice. Those demons are the basic fodder enemies like zombies and possessed soldiers. The shielded ones can be dealt with by either superheating the metal shields by shooting them and throwing your shield at them, or shooting plasma at the energy shielded ones. And speaking further on weapons, they've been broken up into classes because there's 2 of each so far from what I've seen. You've got the shotgun class for the combat super shotguns, the rail spike class for the shredder and impaler. The former shoots nails a la Quake's nail gun, and the latter is a stake launcher that would make Van Helsing blush. The skull crusher class has the pulverizer that crushes up demon skulls to shoot out fragments in an AoE torrent, with the Ravager doing the same, but with a tighter spread. Both are great for thinning herds of demons. You've got the launcher class that has both the grenade launcher and the rocket launcher. Both of them do exactly what you expect those weapons to do. And lastly, we got the plasma weapons, which has the plasma accelerator that shoots faster at shorter ranges, and the plasma cycler that shoots more slowly, but has longer range. You also got a chain shot thing that's just a wrecking ball that you can shoot out, and it's neat. I like it. It's great for splattering dudes. Those are all the weapons I got access to at the moment, and so far, while I lean more towards some than others, I like the guns here. Upping the difficulty to ultra violence definitely helps in the sense that I'm dying way more, and it's usually my fault. But the one thing I can't abide is how the parries can feel a tad wonky at times. There are adjustable timings in the game settings, but I kept them at the defaults because those are what it intended. But I can't help but feel like there are times when I pull up my shield a second late to make the parry and it works just fine, and then time it perfectly at other times just to completely eat shit for it. It's very strange. I've taken a liking to the slower and more in-your-face approach to rip and tear this time around, which is more than I can say for the mech and the dragon. The mech levels have you being in this big stompy mech that fights giant monsters, and the dragon has you flying around disabling enemy ships. They are cool at first, but I don't like how they detract from the gameplay when you're on foot. At least in the times that I've done them. And speaking of being on foot, you know how I mentioned that these levels are huge? This is to facilitate secret hunting, because secret hunting leads to gold caches, and gold is the primary upgrade currency. So I spend a not insignificant amount of time just looking for gold and other trinkets. And you want some of those upgrades because, my goodness gracious, they are powerful as hell. Case in point, you can cause AoE lightning shocks with your base power gauntlet, and you can make the combat shotgun fire in 3-shot bursts. That's right, you heard me. Burst fire shotgun. I almost stopped using the super shotgun for it. And I do hope they keep remixing specific ideas for combat, because I really like some of the enemy changes. Like how the Revenants remembering that their name means they're ghosts and can become ethereal to avoid taking damage, and need to have their shots parried back at them to make them corporeal. There are armored variants of enemies that need to have said armor stripped before they can be killed. The new bakery enemies are pretty cool, and so are the Agadon Hunters, which, fun fact, those are the demons that got so messed up by the Doomslayer that they had to be converted into the Doom Hunters in Eternal. That's a hell of a call forward. But yeah, that is some of my thought soup on the gameplay of Doom the Dark Ages so far. It's shipping up nicely, and I hope it keeps adding to it in the second half. If there's one thing I like about and can say about Doom the Dark Ages, is that it isn't afraid to really lean into the fantasy aesthetic. Argent D'Nur is a veritably cool mix of science fiction technology and fucked up dark fantasy. You even see it in the Slayer's wielding of a shield and flail with a full-on fur barbarian cloak. And you even go to hell for a bit in the first half. And while it's not quite like 2016 in Eternal's blood-slaked heavy metal album cover interpretation of hell, I appreciate that it goes grandiose in its scale. And that's how I describe everything here. It's bigger, it's wider, it's more ambitious. And that's very technically impressive at the same time. To put that technically impressive comment into context, when I built my current PC in 2020, I did it with the express purpose of eating Doom Eternal alive. And eat Doom Eternal it did. It can run that game on max settings at 1440p without dropping a single frame. What can I say? My chipset is goated. With the upgrades to IdTech 8, I was worried I was gonna be left in the dust. But I should have had faith, because outside of one instance of the first time you're in a wide open field causing some slowdown, I have had not a single frame drop below 60. And it still looks great on my 5-year-old, mostly future-proofed machine. I shouldn't be surprised though, this is the same company whose engineers had their technological knowledge passed down to them from the Keeper of the Forbidden Code and the Master of the Anti-Life Equation, John Carmack. While I'll admit that I've had my initial misgivings about Doom the Dark Ages, it genuinely opens up and showcases what makes it really good. While I don't like all of it so far, I will give id props for doing something incredibly different. Because the way I initially felt about Doom the Dark Ages is probably how others felt about Doom Eternal when it came out and changed so much of Doom 2016's gameplay. And that's been an interesting exercise in seeing how other people see things. And it makes me appreciate that we have 3 modern Doom games that all do very vastly different things and do them well. If Doom the Dark Ages can keep up the momentum its mid-game gives it, this is going to be one of the best games of 2025, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to ripping and tearing.